Page 36 continued. The plan of work is not ill-conceived, but it is carried out without a due regard to proportion in its parts. The unity is very seriously impaired by digressions which seem to have no intimate relation with the subject of the book. The author enters into a discussion of the lawfulness of war in the first 4 books, and this discussion is hardly necessary for the stories. The account of the discovery of useful arts in the 4th book is too slightly connected with the subject. In the 5th book, a casual reference to Greek mythology is made, the peg on which to hang a dissertation of 1200 lines on the religions of the world. In this way, Gower's digressions detract the work of the book as a pure narrative poem. However, leaving these digressions, when we come to the actual style of narration, we have no cause of complaint against the author. Gower's style of narration is simple and clear. In telling a story, he is neither tedious nor apt to digress. To find fault with him because he is lacking in humorous appreciation of characters is to judge him by altogether too high a standard. He is not on a level with Chaucer in this respect, though sometimes he rises superior to Chaucer in arrangement of his incidents and in the steadiness with which he pursues the plot of his story. The stories also have poetical qualities. The story of Medea, 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 is marked with force and picturesqueness. The tales of Mondus and Paulina are picturesquely told. There is also a certain attractiveness in the setting of these stories. The conversation which connects the stories is distinguished by colloquial ease. The language and versification is the same as that of Chaucer. With regard to versification, the most marked feature of Gower's work is its great regularity and the extent to which inflectional endings are utilized for metrical purposes. আমি এই জায়গাটা আবার পড়ছি. There is also a certain attractiveness in the setting of these stories. The conversation which connects the stories is distinguished by colloquial ease. The language and versification is the same as that of Chaucer. With regard to versification, the most marked feature of Gower's works is its great regularity and the extent to which inflectional endings are utilized for metrical purposes. The result of Gower's syllabic accuracy brings a certain monotony of rhythm, but this is partially removed by the author's attempt to distribute his passages in such a manner as not to emphasize the rhyme unduly. He runs on freely from one subject the couplet to another, breaking the couplet more often than not in places where a distinct pause occurs, and especially at the end of paragraphs, so that the couplet arrangement is subordinated distinctly, as it is also by Chaucer, to the continuity of the narrative. Gower, however, is not the equal of Chaucer in the variety of rhythm. He has none of his humor, no share of his dramatic gift, no enchantment, no impulse of creative force, no striking originality. His writing are what Chaucer's might have been without Chaucer's genius. Lacking imagination and humor, Gower brought nothing original into English literature. He had a talent for storytelling, but he used it for didactic rather than for artistic purposes. His octosyllabic couplet becomes intolerable as it jigs through many thousand lines. Gower, through the purity of English style and the easy fluency of his expression, exercised a distinct influence upon the development of the language, and in the 15th and 16th centuries he was, on this account, uncritically classed with Chaucer. He is placed with Chaucer as an equal by the author of The King's Quair, Quair, by Occleve, by Dunbar, by Skelton, and even by Sidney in the Apology for the Poesie, Poesie. But, in fact, though he may fairly be joined with the Chaucer as one of the authorities for standard English, his mind was essentially formed in a medieval mould, and as regards subject and the treatment, he looked backwards rather than forwards. The modern note which was struck by Chaucer is almost entirely absent here. This medievalism, however, in itself has a certain charm, and there are qualities of this kind in Confessio Amantic which are capable still of giving genuine pleasure to the reader, while at the same time we are bound to acknowledge the technical finish of the style, both in French and in English poems. End of page 36. Now page 39. Page 37. Gower had a strong feeling for correctness of language and of meter, and at the same time his utterance is genuinely natural and unaffected. In his way, he solved the problem of combining rhetorical artifice within somewhat narrow limits, yet within those limits it moves securely. William Langland, 1332 to 1400. Langland was born probably near Malvern or in Worcestershire, the son of a poor freeman, and in his early life lived in the fields as a shepherd. Later he went to London with his wife and children, getting a hungry living as a clerk in the church. His real life, meanwhile, was that of a seer, a prophet after Isaiah's own heart, if we may judge by the prophecy which soon found a voice in Piers the Ploughman. In 1399, after the success of his great work, he was possibly writing another poem called Richard the Redeless, a proest against Richard II, but we are not certain of the authorship of the poem, which was left unfinished by the assassination of the king. After 1399, Langland disappears utterly, and the date of his death is unknown. The vision concerning Piers the Ploughman. William Langland's well-known work is The Vision Concerning Piers the Ploughman. The chief forms of this poem are A text, B text, C text. Of these, the first version was written about 1362, and contains the vision about Piers Plowman and the vision of do well, do better, and do best. The second version, B text, was written about 1377 and includes the fable of the rats and the cat. The C text has few hundred lines more than the B text. The existence of various versions, thus enlarged and brought up to date, is an indication of the popularity of the work. The poem on the whole consists of 11 visions and has the incoherence and inconsequence of a dream. The prologue describes how the poet has fallen asleep on a fine morning in May by the side of a barn on Beverly Hills. While he was dreaming, he beheld a loft tower with a dungeon in a dell beneath it, and between them was a fair field full of folk representing various sections of the community. The tower stands for heaven, and the dungeon is hell, and the field is the best in the world, where all the farmers, manner of men, mean and rich, live side by side in unholy competition. After the prologue, the dreamer views Lady Mead reward, the sinful lady to whom all the priests and saints pay obedience. She is about to wed falsehood. Their nation is disturbed by theology, and they are brought to Westminster before the king. He makes a proposal that she should marry Conscience, but Conscience has no desire to wed Mead. He advises the king to send for Reason, by whose advice he promises to abide. In a second vision, Reason makes a long address to the people. The 7 deadly sins are called forth and reprimanded. They set out to make confession, but on the way gluttony is tempted into a ale house where all kinds of people are engaged in drinking. Here the poet gives a vivid and realistic description of low life in London. The sinners then go to seek truth, but no one knows the way until Piers the ploughman offers to be their guide. Meanwhile, a dispute ensues between Piers and the priest, and both wax so loud that the dreamer awakes. Up to this, Piers stands for the symbol of honest labor, but in the visions of do well, do better, and do best, which follow, he is transfigured into the very figure of Christ himself, whose crucifixion and descent into hell are described in a language marked with a note of sublimity and grace. Dovils, Dovils, Dovils tremble at the approach of Piers, and the bar of hell breaks asunder. The King of Glory enters in and proclaims his gospel of love. Mercy and truth meet each other. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. The dreamer awakes, and he at heart as he hears the bells ringing in Easter morning. Such is the vision of Piers the ploughman. The style and the method of composition are, in the highest degree, worthy of note. The author, it will be observed, sets forth his views note after the ordinary fashion of allegorists, by bringing together his personifications and using them as mere mouthpieces. but by involving them in a rapidly moving series of interesting situations, skillfully devised to cause each to act and speak in a thoroughly characteristic manner. They do not seem to be puppets, moving and speaking as the showman pulls the strings, but persons endowed each with his own life and moved by the impulses of his own will. Only once or twice does the author interrupt his narration to express his own views or feelings, and never does he allow them to interfere with the skill of sincerity of expression or the dramatis personae. His presentation has indeed the clear, undisturbed objectivity of excellent drama or life itself. End of page 37. Now page 38. The poem describes a series of remarkable versions that pass before the dreamer, and in their general drift we are reminded of the great allegory of Bunyan. The poem may be considered under the following heads: as a picture of contemporary life and manners of the 14th century; second, as a satire upon the religious abuses and vices of the age; third, as work of reform; and fourth, as an allegory of life; fifth, as the last alliterative work in poetry. As a picture of contemporary life, the vision of Piers the ploughman brings before the field full of people, beggars, pilgrims, farmers, hermits, friars, barons and burgesses, tinkers and tailors, cooks and innkeepers, a motley lot. Langland is in fact Dickensian in his Dickensian in his sweep of vision, and he is markedly Dickensian in the comic detailed pictures of the caricatures of the seven sins.